remember that morning like it happened 5 minutes ago. The sky was painted soft gray, the kind that makes you feel something heavy is waiting to happen. I was sipping my coffee at the kitchen counter, watching the steam curl into lazy shapes, when my daughter, Emma, came downstairs. She was 17, smart, bright, and lately a little distant. Her phone was glued to her hand, her eyes tired, her smiles rehearsed. I'd been telling myself it was just teenage stuff. Senior year stress, college applications, heartbreak maybe. But deep down, something in a mother's gut kept whispering, she's hiding something. "Morning, Mom," she said, brushing her blonde hair behind her ear, avoiding eye contact. "Morning, honey," I replied, trying to sound casual. "You're up early for a Saturday." "Yeah, going out with friends," she said, reaching for the car keys. "We're just going for brunch and maybe the lake later." My husband, Tom, had already left for work. It was just us two. The silence between us was heavier than usual. I wanted to ask her about the late-night calls, the strange mood swings, the way she'd started locking her bedroom door, but something stopped me. I didn't want to push her away. Instead, I smiled and said, "Be careful, okay?" She nodded, kissed my cheek half-heartedly, and walked out. When the front door closed, I exhaled, long, slow, uneasy. I busied myself cleaning up, folding laundry, pretending everything was fine. But mothers don't need proof. They feel when something's wrong. Around noon, Tom called. "Hey, you talked to Emma today?" "Yeah, she said she's out with friends. Why?" "Strange. I saw our car parked near the old gas station on Birch Street when I drove by earlier. Thought maybe you'd gone somewhere." I froze. Birch Street wasn't anywhere near her usual hangouts. It was closer to the industrial side of town, not exactly a brunch spot. I tried to rationalize it. "Maybe she was picking someone up," I said, forcing a laugh. But after the call ended, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. An hour later, I heard the car pull up. Emma came in, her hair messy, her face flushed. She looked startled when she saw me. "Oh, you're home," she said, quickly. "Yeah," I answered, eyeing her nervously. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just tired. I'm going to my room." I watched her rush upstairs. Her bag, a big black leather one, slipped slightly from her shoulder. Something metallic clanked inside. She flinched, then gripped it tighter. My heart skipped. "What's in your bag, sweetie?" I asked gently. She froze, halfway up the stairs. "Just school stuff, art supplies," she replied too fast. And before I could say another word, she disappeared behind her bedroom door. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me sit up. Footsteps, drawers closing, the faint creak of the front door around midnight. I wanted to check, but I told myself not to be paranoid. She was almost an adult. I had to trust her. Morning came, and Emma was gone again, car missing too. A note sat on the counter, "Running errands. Be back soon. Love you, Mom." But when she didn't return for hours, my anxiety boiled over. I called her. No answer. Texted her. Nothing. By 4 p.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my coat, got into Tom's truck, and started driving around town. And that's when I saw it. Our family SUV parked near the old gas station again. Heart pounding, I pulled up behind it. The driver's seat was empty, the back window slightly cracked open. I got out slowly, scanning around. No sign of Emma. I walked to the back of the car, reached for the trunk handle, and then stopped. Something inside me hesitated, like a warning whispering, "Don't look." But a mother's instinct doesn't stop halfway. I pressed the button. The trunk lifted. There, among scattered grocery bags and a blanket, was her black leather bag. And that's when I saw the first clue. A tiny smear of dried red on the zipper. My breath caught in my throat. I reached out, hands trembling, and unzipped it. What I saw inside made my vision blur, but before I could make sense of it, I heard footsteps behind me. "Mom?" I turned sharply. Emma stood a few feet away, her face pale, eyes wide in fear. Not surprise, fear. "What are you doing here?" she stammered. My voice broke. "Emma, what is this?" She looked at the bag, then at me, and I swear I saw tears form instantly. "Mom, please, don't look in there," she whispered. But it was too late. I already had.
For a long moment, the world went silent. It was just me, the open trunk, the half-zipped black bag, and my daughter standing there, trembling like a leaf in a storm. "Emma," I whispered again, my voice shaking, "what is this? What's in the bag?" She didn't answer. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Her eyes darted between me and the bag as if she was calculating what I'd already seen. Inside, beneath a torn hoodie, lay what looked like a stack of cash, wrinkled, bound with a rubber band. Next to it, a small silver locket, smeared with something that looked like rust or blood. My breath hitched. "Emma," I said, my throat dry, "where did you get this?" She took a step closer, her eyes glassy. "Mom, please, I can explain. Just close the trunk, please." "No," I said firmly, "not until you tell me what's going on." Her hands started shaking. "You're making it worse. You don't understand." "Then help me understand," I snapped, the fear in my chest twisting into anger. "Emma, what have you done?" She looked like she was going to cry. "It's not what you think," she said quietly. I took a deep breath and reached into the bag again, pulling out a crumpled photo. 2 teenagers smiling beside a car. Emma and a boy I didn't recognize. He had dark hair, a half smile, and a leather jacket. "Who is this?" I asked. She bit her lips so hard I thought she'd draw blood. "That's Mason," she whispered. "Mason? Who's Mason?" Her voice cracked. "He was my friend." "Was?" I repeated, my stomach dropping. "What do you mean, was?" Emma took a shaky breath and looked away. "He's gone, Mom. He's dead." My heart stopped. The wind howled through the parking lot, slamming the trunk door halfway shut. I blinked, trying to process her words. "Dead?" I repeated in disbelief. "Emma, what are you talking about? How? When?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "It happened last week. There was an accident, but it wasn't supposed to—" She stopped herself, choking on her words. "Wasn't supposed to what?" I demanded. She backed away a few steps, her face crumpling. "We were just hanging out. He wanted to show me something he found near the old quarry, an abandoned house. He said there was something inside, something valuable." "Valuable?" I asked, confused. "What does that mean?" She rubbed her arms nervously. "I didn't believe him, but he insisted. We drove out there. He had this old metal box, said it was hidden money, something from his uncle who used to work in construction there. But when he opened it, there was blood inside, a piece of a locket, that locket." I felt the world tilt. "Emma," she continued, "he freaked out, said someone was coming for it. I told him to stop, to call the police, but he panicked. He got in the car and started driving like crazy. I followed him. Then he swerved. The car flipped into the ditch." She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. "I tried to pull him out, Mom. I tried, but it was too late. I tried." Tears welled in my own eyes as I whispered, "Oh, sweetheart." She nodded, trembling. "But I didn't tell anyone because I was scared. The police would think I was involved. Mason's brother, he blamed me. He said if I talked, he'd come after me." My hands went cold. "After you?" She nodded. So I took the bag. I didn't know what else to do. I just wanted to get rid of it. That's what I was doing today, taking it to the lake. I was going to throw it away. I closed the trunk slowly, my mind spinning. Emra, I said softly, you should have told me. She shook her head violently. I couldn't. You'd never believe me. You'd think I was some kind of criminal. Stop, I said, stepping closer and wrapping my arms around her. You're my daughter. There's nothing you could do that would make me stop believing in you. She sobbed into my shoulder, her whole body trembling. I held her tight, whispering, We'll fix this, together. But as I said it, my eyes caught something. A dark SUV parked across the street, engine running, tinted windows rolled halfway down. Someone was watching us. Emma, I said quietly, still holding her, do you know that car? She turned her head slightly. When she saw it, her face drained of color. Oh no, she whispered. Mom, that's him. Who? Mason's brother. I didn't wait another second. I grabbed her hand, slammed the trunk shut, and pulled her toward the car. Get in, I shouted. We jumped inside, and I hit the lock button just as the SUV engine roared louder. It pulled out of the lot and started following us. My heart was racing so fast I could barely see straight. Mom, just go, please, Emma screamed. Tires screeched. I floored the gas, weaving through side streets, my hands gripping the steering wheel like a lifeline. Every instinct in me screamed to protect her. As we turned onto the main road, I glanced in the mirror. The SUV was still there, headlights glaring like eyes in the dark. What does he want? I yelled over the engine noise. Her voice cracked. He wants the bag. The one in the trunk? Yes. Why? She looked at me, terrified. Because there's something else inside it. Something I didn't tell you about. My heart stopped again. What do you mean, something else? She whispered. The money isn't just money, Mom. It's proof. Proof of what? Her eyes filled with tears as she looked at me, terrified, guilty, broken. Proof that Mason didn't die by accident.
The sound of tires screeching echoed in my ears like a heartbeat I couldn't control. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. Every instinct inside me screamed to get my daughter away from that SUV, away from the danger that had suddenly turned our ordinary suburban lives into a nightmare. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in a bruised orange that matched the panic in my chest. Emma, hold on, I yelled, swerving onto a side road. The SUV followed, closing the distance. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. I didn't know where I was going, just away. Away from him, from whatever this was. The suburban calm of Maple Ridge was gone. Now, every intersection, every passing car felt like a potential threat. Emma's breathing was erratic beside me. She clutched the dashboard, tears streaking down her face. Mom, he's not going to stop. He wants what's in that bag, she shouted, her voice trembling. What proof, Emma? I demanded. What are you not telling me? She turned to me, eyes wide, pupils dilated with fear. Mason's brother, his name's Derek, he found out that Mason was trying to expose someone. He said his uncle wasn't just working construction near the quarry. He was hiding something there, something illegal. The road narrowed as we sped down the back route behind the high school. The SUV's headlights grew brighter in the rearview mirror. Illegal? I repeated, my voice sharp. Emma nodded frantically. Mason told me they were laundering money. His uncle used old job sites as drop points for cash and documents. He found one of the boxes, the one I told you about, and realized it tied back to Derek. That's why he freaked out. Derek wasn't trying to protect him, Mom. He was involved. I could barely process her words. So the money? It's evidence, she said, her voice breaking. There's a flash drive inside the bag too. It's got photos, names, everything Mason found before he died. I slammed my foot on the brake, skidding into an empty parking lot near an old diner. The SUV flew past us, tires screeching as it tried to turn around. I turned off the headlights, ducked low, and whispered, "Stay down." For a few seconds, the world went silent again. My chest heaved. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. I looked at my daughter, my sweet, terrified little girl, and felt a rush of emotions that tangled together. Fear, guilt, protectiveness, and disbelief. "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" I whispered. Emma wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "Because I didn't know who to trust. Mason said Derek had people everywhere. He told me if anything happened to him, I should take the bag and keep it hidden. I didn't think he meant he'd die." Her voice broke completely then, and she collapsed into sobs. I reached over and pulled her close, holding her head against my chest. "You did what you thought was right," I whispered, "but we're not running anymore. We're going to the police." Emma shook her head violently. "No, Mom, if we go now, Derek will find out before we even get there." As she said that, the SUV's headlights appeared again, this time from the opposite side of the street. He doubled back. My heart seized. "Mom!" Emma screamed. "Hold on!" I shouted, starting the engine again and slamming the gear shift into reverse. I sped backward out of the lot, tires spinning on loose gravel. The SUV accelerated towards us. I could see the outline of a man behind the wheel, tall, broad, furious. The chase stretched into the darkening streets. My mind was a blur of panic and focus. Streetlights flickered by like pulses of fear. We tore down the road leading towards the outskirts of town, where the old factory buildings stood, silent, abandoned relics of another time. "Mom, he's gaining on us," Emma cried. "I see him," I shouted back. My voice cracked. "We need to lose him before we reach the main road." As the universe heard me, I spotted a narrow dirt path leading behind the factory lot. Without thinking, I swerved off the main road and onto it. The car jolted violently as gravel flew from under the tires. The SUV tried to follow, but swerved too late, crashing into a fence post. I didn't stop to look. I just kept driving until I reached a secluded area behind the building. I killed the engine and told Emma to stay quiet. For a long moment, there was only the sound of our heavy breathing. Then, silence. I turned to Emma. "Give me the bag." She hesitated. "Mom, now." She reached into the back seat and handed me the black bag. My hands trembled as I unzipped it. Inside, beneath the money and locket, was a small black flash drive wrapped in tape. I peeled it open and held it in my hand. "This is what he's after," I murmured. Emma nodded weakly. "It has names of people he worked with, accounts, transactions, everything Mason found before he died." The sound of an engine revving in the distance shattered the moment. My heart sunk. "He's coming back." I looked around desperately, scanning for a plan. Then I saw a rusted door on the side of the factory, slightly ajar. "Come on," I whispered. Grabbing Emma's hand, we ran for it, just slipping inside as the SUV's headlights swept across the field. The air inside was thick with dust and the smell of old metal. Shadows danced on the walls as we ducked behind a stack of crates. My pulse hammered in my ears. Emma clutched my arm. "Mom, I'm scared." "I know, baby, but you're brave. We're gonna get out of this." Footsteps echoed outside, the crunch of boots on gravel. Then the sound of the door creaking open. "Emma," a voice called out, deep and angry. "You shouldn't have taken that bag." Emma froze. "It's him," she mouthed. "Stay here," I whispered. "No, Mom, please." But I was already standing, clutching the bag to my chest. I stepped out from behind the crates and faced the doorway. Derek stood there, silhouetted against the fading light, tall, unshaven, his eyes wild. "Mrs. Thompson," he said coolly, "you've got something that doesn't belong to you." I steadied my voice. "You've already taken enough, Derek. You killed your brother. You think I'm gonna let you take my daughter, too?" His expression hardened. You don't understand what's in that bag. Oh, I understand perfectly, I said. It's the truth, and the truth always comes out. For a second, he hesitated, and in that pause, I saw fear. Not the fear of getting caught, but the fear of being exposed. He took a step forward, and I did the only thing a mother could. I threw the bag as far as I could into the dark of the factory and grabbed Emma's hand. "Run!" I screamed. We bolted towards the back door as Derek shouted and chased after us. My lungs burned, my legs screamed in pain, but I didn't stop. Emma stumbled once, and I pulled her up. As we burst out the back, the sound of sirens suddenly filled the air, distant but growing louder. Red and blue lights flashed in the distance. I didn't know how they got there, but I knew one thing for certain: the chase was over. At least, that's what I thought.
The night air hit my face like cold water as we burst out of the factory's rear door. The world outside was chaos, sirens, flashing lights, and the echo of voices shouting orders. I could barely see straight. My heartbeat roared louder than anything around me. All I knew was that Emma was still in my grasp, her hand slick with sweat, her breath ragged with fear. We stumbled into the dirt lot behind the building, and the sight of 2 police cruisers barreling toward us felt almost unreal. Red and blue lights washed over the cracked concrete and weeds. I slowed, gasping, raising one hand in the air. "Help! Please, he's inside!" 2 officers jumped out immediately, weapons drawn. "Ma'am, step aside. Who's inside?" "His name's Derek Mason," I managed to say between breaths. "He killed his brother. He's armed. He's trying to take something from us." The officers nodded and sprinted toward the factory entrance. Another cruiser pulled in behind us, and a female officer guided Emma and me behind the patrol car. "You're safe now, ma'am. Stay right here." But safe didn't feel real. My knees felt weak, my chest tight. I looked at Emma. She was pale, shaking uncontrollably. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks. She looked at me with the wide, hollow eyes of a child who had seen too much too soon. "Mom," she whispered, "it's not over. He'll destroy the flash drive." Before I could respond, the sound of gunfire cracked through the night. 2 sharp pops that made both of us duck. I felt Emma flinch beside me. The officers around us shouted into radios, their voices blending into a mess of static and commands. Then, silence. Moments later, the same 2 officers emerged from the factory. One of them carried a flashlight. The other, his jaw tight, spoke into his radio. "Suspect down. Requesting ambulance and backup for evidence recovery." My breath caught. Derek was down. The female officer turned back to us. "It's okay now. You're both safe." But as relief began to flood through me, Emma suddenly tore away from my grasp and ran toward the factory door. "Emma!" I screamed, chasing after her. "Stop!" By the time I reached her, she was standing over Derek's motionless body. The paramedics were already there, checking for a pulse. The scene looked like a nightmare frozen in time. The broken glass, the faint smell of gasoline, and Derek's face, pale and still. Emma's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, "He wasn't always like this." I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her close. "Come on, baby, you don't need to see this." But she didn't move. She stared at Derek's open hand. In it was a piece of paper, crumpled, blood-stained. Emma slowly reached down and took it before I could stop her. "What is it?" I asked softly. She unfolded it with trembling fingers. Her eyes widened as she read. "It's a letter from Mason." My chest tightened. "What does it say?" Her voice shook as she read aloud. "If you're reading this, it means I couldn't make it. Don't blame Derek. He got in too deep with people who don't forgive mistakes. The flash drive has what they need to stop them. Give it to the police. I trust you. M." Her voice broke completely at the end. She covered her mouth and sobbed. I pulled her close again, holding her tight while the world around us spun with flashing lights and chaos.
The officers retrieved the black bag from inside and cataloged everything: money, locket, flash drive. They asked us to go to the station for statements. I barely remember the drive there, just the distant hum of the sirens and the warmth of Emma's head resting against my shoulder. At the precinct, we were led to a small interview room. The walls were beige, the air cold, and everything smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant. The detective who came in, Detective Harland, looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. He was calm, but sharp, the kind of man who could read a room in seconds. "Mrs. Thompson, Emma," he said, sitting across from us, "you both did the right thing tonight. What you brought in, it's big." I swallowed hard. "How big?" He placed a small evidence bag on the table, the flash drive inside. "This contains records of payments, offshore accounts, and at least 3 names tied to organized laundering and illegal construction deals. Mason's brother was being used as a courier. He probably didn't realize how deep he was until it was too late." Emma's eyes welled with tears again. "So, he didn't mean to hurt anyone?" Harlan shook his head. "From what we've seen so far, your friend was trying to do the right thing. He just got caught between loyalty and fear." I reached over and took Emma's hand. "He trusted you, honey, and you honored that trust." Harlan nodded. "We'll need to keep you both under temporary protection until this clears. There may be others looking for that evidence." The words hit me like a second storm. "Others?" "Yes, ma'am," he said gently. "But don't worry, we'll take care of it. You and your daughter are safe for now." He stood and left, leaving us alone. Emma leaned against my shoulder, whispering, "Mom, I can't believe it's over." I stroked her hair softly. "It's not over yet, sweetheart, but it's getting better. We're still standing." Outside the small window, dawn was starting to break. The faintest gold touched the sky, signaling the end of one long, terrifying night. I closed my eyes and whispered a silent prayer of gratitude for the sirens that came just in time, for the officers who believed us, and for my daughter who was alive and safe beside me. But deep down, something in me still felt unsettled. The way Derek's body was found, the missing phone from the evidence list, the uneasy quiet after the chaos. Something about it didn't add up. And as I sat there in that small, sterile room, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone else, someone bigger, was still out there watching.
The police station began to quiet as the night faded into morning. I sat there with a paper cup of coffee cooling in my hands, staring at the fingerprint powder that clung to my sleeves. Emma had fallen half asleep beside me on the bench, her head resting against my shoulder, but my mind wouldn't stop turning. Detective Harlan's words kept replaying. Others may be looking for that evidence. I kept wondering who others meant. Mason's letter hinted at people more dangerous than Derek, people with reach. If the flash drive had been enough to bring the police running, what else could be out there that we hadn't seen? When Harlan came back an hour later, his expression told me something new had unfolded. He motioned for me to follow him down the hallway. I hesitated, glancing at Emma, then stood quietly so I wouldn't wake her. Inside his office, he closed the door and dropped a file on the desk. "We ran the data on that flash drive," he said. "Your daughter's friend collected more than bank records. There's surveillance footage, dozens of clips from the construction site near the quarry. One of them shows a meeting. Derek's there, yes, but so is someone else you know." I frowned. "Someone I know?" He turned the screen toward me, pressed play, and my stomach sank. The grainy video showed a group of men around a table in a half-lit trailer. Derek sat on one side. On the other was a man in a familiar gray suit, one I'd seen hanging by our front door too many times to count. I gasped before I could stop myself. "That's Tom," I whispered. "My husband." Harlan studied my reaction carefully. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Thompson. We didn't want to believe it either, but the timestamp matches dates when he claimed to be on site for his construction firm. He's the project manager who approved every cash flow request tied to these accounts. He's been funneling money for months. My hands trembled so badly I had to grip the edge of the desk. No, Tom wouldn't. He's not like them. The detective's voice softened. I wish that were true, but this explains why Derek was after your daughter. Mason must have realized Tom had evidence connecting him to the laundering ring. If Emma destroyed the flash drive, the trail would have died with Derek. I could hardly breathe. Memories flooded back. The late nights Tom claimed he was working overtime, the strange phone calls that stopped when I entered the room, the cash withdrawals he brushed off as client expenses. It all came together like pieces of glass cutting into me. I need to talk to him, I said quietly. Harlan shook his head. He's already in custody. Highway Patrol picked him up at dawn trying to cross state lines. He had a burner phone and a briefcase full of cash. I pressed my mouth, a sob escaping before I could hold it in. Everything inside me collapsed at once. The fear, the betrayal, the relief that Emma was safe, mingled with the horror of realizing the danger had started inside our own home. When Harlan came back an hour later, Emma was awake, blinking sleep from her eyes. "Mom, what happened?" I knelt in front of her, brushing her hair from her face. "Sweetheart, there's something I have to tell you." My voice wavered, but she deserved the truth. The people Mason was exposing, your father was one of them. She stared at me, uncomprehending. "Dad, no, that can't be." I took her hands, feeling her pulse race beneath my fingers. I didn't want to believe it either, but they have proof. He's been working with Derek's group for months. Her eyes filled with tears, and the sound that came from her was small and broken. "He's the reason Mason died, isn't he?" I couldn't answer. I didn't need to. The silence between us was enough. She folded forward, sobbing into my chest, while I held her, both of us shaking in disbelief. Later that morning, the detective let us see Tom through the observation window. He sat alone at the table, staring at his cuffed hands, his once confident posture slumped. I remembered all the dinners, the laughter, the promises that family meant everything. I wondered when exactly he'd traded that for greed. Harlan placed a hand on my shoulder. He's agreed to cooperate. He says he never wanted anyone hurt. He thought the money laundering was just a way to fix some debts. But once Mason found out, he panicked. He told Derek to scare the boy, not kill him. I closed my eyes, tears slipping free. And now Mason's gone. Derek's gone. My family? I couldn't finish. That evening, when they finally let us leave, Emma and I drove home in silence. The morning light made the neighborhood look ordinary again. Sprinklers misting the lawns, kids waiting for school buses. But everything felt different. The world had shifted beneath our feet. Inside the house, the air smelled like coffee and detergent, as if nothing terrible had ever happened. On the kitchen table sat Tom's mug from yesterday morning, half full, cold. I stared at it for a long time and then whispered, "How did we get here?" Emma leaned against the doorway, her face pale but determined. "Mom," she said softly, "Mason told me once that the truth always costs something. Maybe this was the price." Her words pierced me with a strange, quiet strength. She wasn't the frightened teenager from the trunk anymore. She'd walked through fire and come out wiser. I realized then that this wasn't just the end of a nightmare. It was the start of a reckoning. As evening fell, we sat together on the back porch, watching the sun dip below the rooftops. The cicadas buzzed, and for the first time in days, the air felt still. Emma reached for my hand. "We're gonna be okay, right?" I squeezed her fingers. "We will be. It'll take time, but we'll find our way back." The horizon blushed pink and gold, but deep inside me, that lingering sense of unease flickered again. The flash drive had been turned over, the arrests made, the confessions recorded. Yet part of me wondered if Tom was just one player in a bigger scheme, who else was still out there? When I looked toward the street, I noticed a black sedan parked a few houses away. It wasn't one of the neighbors.
The engine idled for a moment, then slowly rolled off into the distance. I told myself it was nothing, but the mother in me knew better.
Morning sunlight spilled through the blinds the next day, painting faint gold lines across the floor. The house felt hollow without Tom's voice echoing from the kitchen or the thud of his briefcase hitting the counter. Emma moved quietly, avoiding the spaces that used to hold our family rhythm. Every room seemed to whisper the same question: what happens now? I spent the day cleaning, maybe out of habit, maybe to keep from thinking too much. When I opened the hall closet, I found Tom's jacket still hanging there. In its inside pocket was a folded receipt, gas from a small town nearly 200 miles away, dated 2 days before Mason died. The address printed at the top made my pulse quicken. Lakeside. Motel? Why would Tom have been there? He told me he'd been working in the city that week. Part of me wanted to hand the slip to Detective Harlan, but another part, the part that still needed answers, wanted to see for myself. I told Emma I was running an errand and promised I'd be home before dark. She looked uneasy but didn't argue. I could tell she was tired of secrets. The drive to Lakeside took almost 3 hours. The further I went, the more the city gave way to winding roads lined with pine trees and fog curling over the lake. The motel sat off the highway like a ghost from another decade, paint peeling, vacancy sign flickering. I parked and stepped out, heart hammering. The manager, a woman with sharp eyes and a cigarette tucked behind her ear, glanced up as I entered the office. "Looking for a room?" she asked. "Actually," I said, sliding the receipt across the counter, "I think my husband stayed here recently. I just wanted to confirm." She studied it, then nodded slowly. "Yeah, room 14. He checked in late, left early, didn't take the key. Had someone with him, a young guy, maybe 20s, looked nervous." My breath caught. "Do you remember what the young man looked like?" She squinted, thinking. Dark hair, faded backpack. I think he called the older guy Mr. T. Why? Something wrong? Mr. T. Tom. My knees nearly gave way. Mason had been here, with him. I thanked you and walked back outside, the cool wind biting through my coat. I circled the building until I found room 14. The door was locked, but the window latch was broken. I pushed it open and stepped inside. Dust floated in the slanted sunlight, and the air smelled of stale coffee and damp carpet. On the floor near the bed was a torn notebook page. I picked it up carefully. The words were scrawled in rushed handwriting. If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. He said he'd protect me, but I can't trust him anymore. The drive isn't the only copy. I left another hidden inside the red backpack. I felt my throat tighten. The red backpack. Emma's backpack. My phone buzzed before I could process it. It was Emma, her voice frantic. "Mom, where are you? You have to come home. Someone's outside the house." I froze. "Lock the doors. Stay hidden. I'm coming." I sped the entire way back, the receipt and note shaking in my hand. By the time I turned onto our street, dusk had fallen. The black sedan I'd seen the night before was back, parked at the curb with its lights off. As I pulled in, it rolled away quietly, disappearing around the corner. Inside, Emma ran to me, trembling. He knocked on the door, said he was from the utility company, but I saw the gun under his jacket. My heart pounded. I locked every door and called Detective Harlan. He answered immediately. "Stay inside. We've had reports of one of Derek's men on the loose. He might think Tom cut a deal." We waited in the dark, blinds drawn. Every creak in the house made us flinch. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. When headlights flashed outside, I felt my stomach twist. But it was just Harlan's car pulling in. He and another officer swept through the yard, then came inside. "You're safe now," he said, but his eyes were grave. We caught him a mile away. He had a list of addresses, including yours. Seems he wanted the backup copy Mason mentioned. I handed him the note from the motel. This must be what he was after. He read it, nodding grimly. "Then we still need to find that second drive. Do you know where the red backpack is?" Emma frowned. I thought it was still in the trunk, but maybe. She trailed off, then dashed upstairs. Moments later, she came down holding a dusty backpack from the top shelf of her closet. Harlan unzipped it carefully. Inside, wrapped in an old t-shirt, was a small flash drive identical to the first one. Relief and dread washed over me all at once. "This is the last piece," Harlan said. "With this, we can expose everyone involved." He slipped it into an evidence bag. "You did the right thing, Mrs. Thompson. You and your daughter just ended a major corruption network." When the officers left and the house finally fell quiet, I sank onto the couch, exhausted. Emma curled beside me, her head on my shoulder. "It's over," she murmured. "Almost," I said softly. "The truth's out now. We just have to live with it." Weeks passed. Tom's trial drew headlines across the state. The flash drive revealed layers of corruption that reached higher than anyone imagined. Developers, city officials, even a senator. Tom cooperated fully, earning a lighter sentence, but nothing could repair what had shattered between us. Emma refused to see him. I visited once just to tell him that despite everything, part of me still remembered the man who taught our daughter how to ride a bike and who used to hum while cooking breakfast. He wept, but neither of us found the right words. Spring came, and with it a strange calm. Emma applied to colleges, determined to study criminal justice. She said to help people like Mason. I supported her with pride and a touch of heartbreak. We sold the house and moved closer to my sister's place, starting over in a smaller town where no one knew our story. One evening, as I unpacked boxes, I found the old paper receipt from the motel. I almost threw it away, but something made me turn it over. Scrawled faintly on the back in Tom's handwriting were 4 words. I tried to stop. Tears blurred my vision, but for the first time, they weren't just from grief. They were from release. Because in some twisted way, that note proved he'd been drowning before we saw the storm. That night, Emma and I sat outside watching the stars. She asked, "Mom, do you ever wish you hadn't opened the trunk that day?" I smiled sadly. If I hadn't, we'd still be living in a lie. Sometimes the hardest truths are the ones that save us. A breeze swept across the yard, cool and clean, carrying away the last of winter's chill. I felt the weight of everything, fear, betrayal, loss, lift just enough for me to breathe again. Inside, the phone buzzed with a new message from Detective Harlan. "Case closed. You and your daughter are safe now." I stared at the words for a long moment before replying, "Thank you. For everything." Then I turned off the light and watched Emma drift to sleep, her face peaceful for the first time in months. Maybe the world hadn't gone back to normal. Maybe it never would. But in that quiet moment, I realized something simple yet profound. Truth may break you, but it also sets you free. And as I finally closed my eyes, I whispered the words that had started it all, this time with calm instead of fear. "Stop the car." Because now I knew exactly when to stop, when to face what's hiding in the dark, and when to start living again.